We had Rachel Reeves this week making a very unusual speech in which she said lots of things, nothing specific in terms of what's coming in the budget later this month, but she did say we will all have to contribute to that effort. Each of us must do our bit.
We already are.
Which is set a hair running about an increase in taxes. Tim, should Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves resign if they do increase taxes and break their manifesto commitment?
No, in a fantasy world, yes, but obviously not, because they're not going to present a budget and then say, right, I'm done, sit down and resign on the spot. I mean, that would be absurd. But I was serious in my shouting there. I hate it when chancellors say you've all got to contribute, as if we haven't been doing that.
We know that Rachel's got some very, very difficult choices ahead of her. We've had a year of stabilising the economy, but we've got that choice ahead of us is, do we want to return to austerity or do we want to continue the renewal and the regrowth of Britain? We're delivering on our manifesto, we're reforming public services, and if we want to continue to build that and support our children, our young people, and invest in the services people care about, we're going to have to make some very difficult decisions in the coming weeks.
And they said, we are going to put up national insurance last year, and then you'll remember, telling the people again and again, studio after studio, visiting the CBI, we will not be back for more.
Boy. So we got to talk about this fascinating debate segment on the BBC out in the UK, because they are debating the same things that we're currently debating in the United States of America about whether or not we should tax the rich, right? Are the rich paying their fair share, right? Are they paying their fair share? Which leftists in the United States of America and in the UK don't believe so, right? They don't believe that paying 50% of your taxes to the government and essentially funding a vast majority of the social programs in the country, right? It's not enough, okay? No. The rich actually need to pay more instead of the government spending money more responsibly.
You know, I wonder, though, often we see this, and this is a local election. New York does not operate in a vacuum. It competes with other cities. And so this idea of somehow raising taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers, who, by the way, I would point out, pay roughly 15% of their income right now between city and state, raising taxes on them will simply drive them away. Shouldn't the focus of a mayor be on delivering services to the constituents of the city and doing that by raising the most revenue as possible without chasing businesses and the high-income taxpayers out of the city, because they can go to Austin, they can go to Dallas, they can go to Atlanta, they can go to Nashville. This is your issue. It's a national issue, not a local issue.
The issue is affordability. Do you know how many working families are chased out of New York City every day because they can't afford housing, they can't afford groceries, they can't afford child care? What Zoran is saying is, I want people to be able to afford to live in New York City. That's what keeps it a vibrant city. That's what makes people want to live
Nobody
here.
disagrees with that, Senator, but raising taxes in order to do it? Why is that the answer?
Oh, dear. Are you worried that billionaires are going to go hungry?
No, I'm worried that they're going to leave and spend their money elsewhere.
You know, they've threatened to do that over and over and over.
And they have. They've left.
But here's the thing.
And Goldman Sachs, when they create new jobs, they do it in Dallas. And Blackstone won't build a new headquarters. And go on and on.
You want to have a workable city? You want to have a city that's vibrant? You want to have a city where the streets are full, where there are things for sale 24 hours a day? Then you need people who can live here and work here.
Well, we've got that right now, by the way. I would point out New York is thriving. So now it's doing pretty well, actually.
I'm glad you think they're doing well, because a lot of people are struggling to pay for housing. A lot of people are struggling to pay for groceries. And I got to tell you, mamas and daddies who are facing $25,000 a year to pay for child care.
Those are national issues. I mean, I know they are the local state, but you can't.
New York City.
Yes, but if you deal with them in that way, by what is always your backup, just tax them more, they will leave.
No, the backup is make this city and make this country work for everyone. I get that the Republican point of view is make this country and make every city in this country work better and better for a handful of billionaires and let everybody else eat dirt. But what Mamdani won on in a Democratic primary is he said, I'm going to address affordability. And he didn't win by one vote.
No, he won by a lot. It's very much unclear he has the ability to actually do it, by the way, based on the laws and what the governor has to say and what he would actually have to do.
You know, I love that as the fallback position, and that is he's fighting for the right thing, but maybe the billionaires will have a way to
everybody
block
wants
him.
a more affordable city. There's no doubt about that. The question is how you go.
I actually do have a doubt about that. The
build more
billionaires
housing.
sure want to pay their part on this.
You build more.
All right, y'all, quick break from the show because this is important. Look, we talk a lot here about standing up for yourself, not letting big corporations, the government, or anybody else push you around. But what happens when real life hits, car accidents, workplace injuries, medical mistakes, and suddenly you're the little guy going up against a massive insurance company? Well, that's where Morgan & Morgan comes in. There's a reason reporters never run out of breaking news. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. They've recovered over $25 billion for 500,000 clients with more than 1,000 lawyers nationwide, and they're built on one simple idea. For the people. That means when you're hurt, you don't pay them a dime up front. They only get paid if you win. And trust me, these big companies have teams of big lawyers working against you. You need somebody just as powerful fighting for you. When you hire Morgan & Morgan, it's like hiring a legal army that has your back. If you're injured because of somebody else's negligence, you deserve to be paid. So if you've been hurt in an accident, at work, or anywhere in between, don't roll the dice alone. You can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. You can start your claim now by clicking the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen from your phone's camera. Because at the end of the day, protecting yourself and your family isn't just common sense. It's conservative values in action. Yeah. So this same exact debate is happening in the UK as they debate whether or not they should raise taxes, right? Do they need to raise taxes in order to pay for all of these socialist programs that are very prevalent in the UK already, right? But apparently these leftists think, no, we haven't taxed the rich enough. And I want to talk about this because, again, I think that this conversation, this debate is fascinating. And the fact that they're still having this debate, even in the UK, should tell everybody in the United States of America what the real goal of these leftists really is. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this clip featuring Zarah Sultana, who is a politician in the UK, an MP, a socialist, okay, a flat out socialist. And this guy, Danny Kruger, who is a part of the Reform Party, which is a more right-leaning party in the UK.
It's the rich who pay most of the taxes. You start taxing the rich will leave, and the poor will stay even poorer.
They won't leave.
They're all leaving.
They will not leave.
They're already leaving.
They will leave.
This is some scaremongering that's done, that if you tax the super rich, and like I said, the 20,000 people in the country have assets over £10 million, they are not going to leave their assets and just move to another country.
Yes, they are.
Their kids are in the private schools here, their culture, their lifestyle is very much in this country, and I think that's scaremongering to justify nurses and teachers in Coventry South paying more taxes than the billionaires, than Amazon and Facebook, who get to negotiate their taxation deals with the government. I think that's criminally unfair. I think we shouldn't be taxing work, we should be taxing wealth more, because
I just want to come in on the.
happening.
Thank you. I just want to come in. It's really wrong to say that that high wealth taxes, high taxation doesn't drive away the wealthy. It really does. 17,000 high net worth individuals left this country last year. But worse than that, Zara, 150,000 young people, talented young people, have left this country because they don't see this country as being the place for them. So that is the chronic result of a system and a government that doesn't respect wealth creation and that thinks, as you do, that somehow people with wealth have somehow stolen it from other people and that it should be removed from them by the government and redistributed. Of course, they do pay their fair share. Well, we can argue about that.
That wealth isn't taxed as fairly as work.
No, but hang on. The wealthiest people do pay proportionately far more of their income and, of course, their wealth than other people. And as the gentleman says, this is the source of growth in our country. We have to get behind the wealth creators. That is the only place to get taxation from. It's also the place that creates, it's the source of jobs. It's the source of the businesses that we all rely on. We need to get behind entrepreneurs, yes, tax them properly, but crucially invite the wealthy of the world to come and set up businesses here, invest in our country and stay here and make a home. We will all be the beneficiaries of that.
All right, I've got 10 minutes left and I want to fit in this question because
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. very familiar conversation, right? Very, very, very familiar conversation that is currently happening in the U.S. with the election of Zohran Mamdani, the socialist in New York City, who is hell-bent on turning New York City into London, right? About tax to rich and whether or not tax to rich will lead to the rich leaving, right? And individuals a lot of individuals believe that to be the case, okay? We just did a story yesterday about how a lot of business leaders are saying, hey, we got to pause on expanding in New York, right? We need to think about moving to other parts of the country where they have lower tax rates, right? Where they're not going to steal 50% of my income, okay? Now, again, in the UK, they're having this conversation despite the fact that the top 1% there pay about 30% of the total income tax. In the US, the top 1% pay 40% in federal income tax. Now, here's the thing. The taxes are spread out a little bit differently in the UK than the United States, so it's not completely apples to apples, but I'm just giving you guys as close of a comparison as I can so you guys can understand that despite the fact that the UK has everything that these socialists claim that they want, they're still asking for more. The top 10% pay about 60% of the total taxes. In the US, we're talking about the top 5% paying about 61% and the top 10% paying 72%. So again, in both countries, you have at least the top 10% paying a vast majority of the taxes, right? But apparently that's not enough. Then the UK, again, it's a little bit different because you have to add in the fact that the UK is already highly socialized. The top income tax rate in the UK is 45% compared to 37% in the US, so they have higher taxes. They also have a 20% VAT tax, aka sales tax, on almost everything. So again, a 20% sales tax, national sales tax, which we don't have in the United States of America. The UK government spending is about 44 to 46% of GDP versus the US around 36 to 38% of GDP. They have a stronger welfare state. They have free nationalized healthcare, which they hate, by the way. Never let these leftists ever gaslight you into believing that, all of these countries that have universal healthcare, they just love it. No. In the UK, they actually hate it, right? They hate it. They just don't seem to be aware enough to understand that the reason why they hate it is because it's free, right? It's because it's nationalized. That's why you hate it, right? But anyways, they got free / heavily subsidized university programs, housing subsidies, child benefits, broad unemployment and disability support. And there's much more regulation in labor markets, energy, healthcare, utilities. So all of this is objectively more redistributionist than the United States of America. But yet you still have these left-wing voices in the UK, in a country that's more redistributionist, more socialist than the United States of America by far. Okay, higher taxes. They're saying that, well, the taxes on the wealthy are still too low. That the universal healthcare, the free healthcare, is still unaffordable, right? It needs more funding. Rent controls need to be expanded. They need more public transport subsidized. Private schools need to be abolished. They need a wealth tax, more universal benefits, more nationalization of key industries. So they're calling for more redistribution, more public ownership, more state control, despite the fact that they already have a very socialized system. Now, what is the result of all that? When you look at growth, the average GDP growth for the United States, real GDP growth, over the last 10 years is 2.5%. The UK is at 1.4%. That's the cost. So you have higher taxation, more welfare, lower growth. And these leftists are still bitching and complaining and boo-hoo whining and crying saying, well, it's not enough. We need to do more. Which should tell you everything that you need to know about what the actual goal is. It's almost as if the goal is not to help people. It's not to make things more affordable. It's not about the rich paying their quote unquote fair share is all about power and control. Because let's be real, the UK is not affordable. Not compared to the United States of America, housing costs are much higher. London, 35 to 55% more expensive than major U.S. metros for rent. For rent. And even outside of London, the housing is kind of shit. Smaller, older, more regulated, lower rates of home ownership, right? A lot of people, right now have issues with the affordability of housing in the United States of America, but it's not like you can go to Europe and get more affordable housing. You're not getting more affordable housing in Europe. That ain't happening. At least not in the UK, Germany, France. You're not getting more affordable housing. Not with no socialist model, you're not. Again, we already talked about taxation, much higher taxation. Gas prices out of control. You're talking about $7.30 per US gallon. Per gallon in the UK. So again, transportation, dramatically more expensive. Utilities, UK energy bills, 20 to 40% higher than US equivalents. Healthcare is quote unquote free, but guess who's paying for it? Again, you got to pay that sales tax, that national sales tax. The middle class is paying for it. It ain't free. It ain't free at all. It ain't free. And then you got to deal with all of the shit services that you get with so-called free healthcare. Long wait lines, understaffing, decreased quality. Again, all heavily subsidized, but it's free. Free though, free. Wages are much lower. Average UK salary, $44,000 US dollars versus 58 to 65,000 in the United States of America. So I'm trying to figure out, why would I want this? Why would I want this? The UK is more socialist. They got higher taxes, more redistribution, and yet the cost of living is worse, not better. And the left-wing activists are still complaining that is not enough and that we need more socialism in the United States of America in order to make things more affordable, when in the system that they're advocating for, we have a real-world example of the actual results of what happens, and none of the results that these people promise, lower costs, better health care, all of these magical things, right, that they promise, this is what's going to happen if we become more like Europe, right? When you look at some of these European countries, again, the UK, they're not getting those results. They're not getting the results that we are now being promised from these far left radicals in the United States of America. We're being promised that socialism is going to make things more affordable, but yet I don't see an example of that happening. Not in these countries that they're trying to make us be like. But again, what they'll say is that, well, see, you don't understand. The problem is that they're not socialist enough. They need to tax the rich more. They need higher taxes, more government spending, more redistribution, more state ownership. That's the problem. Again, because the goal was always about communism. It was always about power and control. These left-wing activists controlling everything, controlling every portion of your life. You not having a damn thing, not owning a damn thing. It was all about power. It's all about their ideology. It's all about ushering in communism. That's what they want. This is why they're never going to stop crying. They're never going to stop saying tax the rich. They're never going to stop saying that you should pay your fair share. They're never going to stop saying that the government needs to basically control everything. They need to pay for everything. They're never going to stop saying that. It doesn't matter how much you do. And that's what people got to understand. These people are con artists. They're selling you a pipe dream that does not exist. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.